Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here back with another video. Been a while, been a long time. I miss you guys. But in the world of professional wrestling, we have even more news. The last time we spoke, we were mourning the deaths of Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk, and we were getting ready for AEW's biggest event, AEW's first stadium show ever in history, All Out. And at that show, there was some incidents with CM Punk and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Jack Perry, of course, the son of Luke Perry, the deceased 90210 actor that used to play Dylan. He's a wrestler now, and he is in AEW. There was a shouting match, and apparently Tony Khan was shoved down. So because of this, people heard about this. Because think about it, this is the biggest event in the history of AEW. 81,000 people at Wembley Stadium. AEW is only 4 years old. AEW was established in 2019. It's a 4-year-old company, and they've got to this level. It took WWE years, 20 years, I think, either 20 or 19 years of their existence from 1953 to 1972 to even get their first stadium show, Bruno versus Pedro back in the day. And to get to the pinnacle stadium, shit, that took more. That took at least 40 years, from 1952 to 1992, with Bret Hart versus Davey Boy Smith, a show which Hulk Hogan was not at, and there was no dying Make-A-Wish kid rotting flesh in the front row, if you know what I mean. But in AEW, within 4 years they've got to this level. This is the biggest night in Tony Khan's life. This is his dream come true. Booker, his father, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, putting an owner of the UK soccer team, putting all his money and his resources behind his son Tony Khan. This is his night. This is his moment, to paraphrase Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in his WrestleMania 3 interview. We have reached our moment. This was their WrestleMania 3. This was their SummerSlam 1992. This was their event. And they did it in 4 years, where it took WWE decades to do that. You know what I'm saying? And WWE at least had the history of their promotion as a territory and all that, and the history that goes back to the 50s. AEW only goes back to 2019. Think about it. They're the only promotion in wrestling history to never, a major promotion, to never have an NWA connection. They never were affiliated with the NWA ever. You know what I'm saying? Besides the fact that the founder, Cody Rhodes, was NWA champion. They don't have that history. They don't have that history to draw from. They built it from scratch. Tony Khan and Tony Khan alone, along with the EVPs, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes at one time, and Chris Jericho came along as the resident legend, the Terry Funk role. What Terry Funk played in ECW, he played in AEW. So point being, this is their moment. So they got to bring back CM Punk. Despite what happened a year and a half ago with CM Punk at the media scrum, the media is all there. As much of the media that covers professional wrestling, which is probably like Wade Keller in the Pro Wrestling Torch or Dave Meltzer in Wrestling Observer. Not real media, not the Daily News, not the Post. They could give two fucks about wrestling. But anyway, that kind of wrestling media was all there. And then he comes out with this bullshit. And then it comes out later he got into a fight with the EVPs, started swinging chairs and shit, and attacking the Bucks, and because of that, he was suspended and he was let go. But think back before that, CM Punk, the hottest free agent in professional wrestling, the hottest star in professional wrestling since 2011 when he dropped his pipe bomb, and then he went on that role as a champion 400 and something days, right? He's dissatisfied with that because he had to drop the belt to The Rock when The Rock came back to WWE in 2013, right? He doesn't want to wrestle at WrestleMania 30 against Triple H. He walks out of the company. I remember that day. The news just hit like wildfire. CM Punk has left WWE. And from that point on, from 2014 on, all we heard was CM Punk chants, CM Punk. Every match we would have, it would ruin the entire experience of watching WWE. That's how over this guy was. You know, they missed him. They wanted him back, right? And then they finally do get him back in 2021. He goes to the backstage show. And he's dealing only with Fox. That's a little stopover. That doesn't really count because he was dealing with just Fox. He wasn't dealing with WWE. But when he returns to the ring, first he does the UFC thing. He trains for 2 years, right? He leaves the WWE. He trains for 2 years. He makes his UFC debut. The motherfucking UFC got washed. I mean, he got washed. The first fight with Mickey Gall, he got washed, right? Then he comes back a year later, does the exact same thing with Mike Jackson, washed. Skill in real fighting whatsoever. He's a completely fake, phony fraud. All that shit that he tries to do in the ring, that's a fraud. So then WWE brings him back for the backstage thing in a deal with Fox, not with WWE. So everybody thinks, oh, he's coming back to the WWE. It's finally over. CM Punk is coming back. Nope. What does CM Punk do? He signs in 2021 with AEW, the new start-off company. And I'll never forget that Dynamite on, I think it was an episode of Dynamite. It was an episode of one of AEW's shows. I can't keep track. They have so many of them. You know, they have AEW Dark. They have another fucking show on TBS. I don't watch them all. I just know about Dynamite. But anyway, it was an episode of AEW. He comes back in Chicago, 2021, 7 years of being gone, not counting the debacles in the UFC, whatever. 7 years of being gone. The fans are cheering him. CM Punk, CM Punk. He falls into the crowd. The crowd catches him. So much love for the second city saint in his city of Chicago, Illinois, right? And we think, damn, he's going to be the man. And he's on a roll in AEW. Having feuds with MJF, having feuds with some of the hottest stars in AEW until this press scrum thing happens. And when the press scrum thing happens, Tony Khan, because he paid so much money for CM Punk, and CM wanted to build a promotion around CM Punk, he brushes it under the rug. He gets him off TV for a year and a half. But for this show, he wanted to bring him back, and not just as a wrestler, but under an employee contract to do some creative and some consulting and to help some of the guys. But what does he do? He gets into a shouting match and gets into a real match with Jack Perry backstage. And he shoves Tony Khan. And apparently there were monitors that were tripped over, and one of them apparently fell or almost fell on Tony Khan. And then Tony Khan releases a statement saying that he felt his life was in danger. So they go to, that's All In, right? They go to pay-per-view. They have they had a pay-per-view on the 27th. And then they had a pay-per-view this past weekend. I mean, I don't know if they thought that was smart. They were going head-to-head with Payback, you know. And the pay-per-view they're having this past weekend was in Chicago, right? So he comes out, Tony Khan, telling the people, listen, I fired CM Punk. My life was in danger. I fired CM Punk. So now CM Punk, who I said was the wrestler 2010s because of what he did, the pipe bomb, right? And leaving the WWE, Money in the Bank 2011 was one of the hottest shows of that era. He was always a controversial star. Hell, when he left Ring of Honor, he signed his WWE contract on Ring of Honor's title belt. And he tried to do the same thing with WWE. He's always been that kind of controversial guy that walks out when he's not happy. But life has imitated art. Now he's still not happy. You know what I mean? They throw everything at him. They offer to build a company around him. They pull a Hulk Hogan. What WCW did to Hulk Hogan in 1994 was what they did to him. They rolled the red carpet out for him. They made him the man. And now he still cannot play well with others, and he still cannot get along with others. A lot of people are saying, I stand with CM Punk. They should have fired Jack Perry. But look, Jack Perry has been there since the beginning. You know what I'm saying? CM Punk came in and he thought he could start changing things. He thought he could start running the show. Tony Khan is a ballless, gutless, soft as baby shit, pushover cuck. There's no other way to put it. He thinks that he could be friends with these wrestlers. He thinks he could be cool with these wrestlers. He could go out and have White Claw with these wrestlers. And for some of them, he can, making every single one of them EVPs, like the Bucks and Kenny Omega. And you know, that's cool because they built that elite on the Elite channel. They built their careers in other promotions, particularly Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, that they brought their credentials over to the WWE. I mean, over to AEW, that built up AEW. That's cool. But look, CM Punk, he's a different animal. CM Punk's been to the mountain. He's been to the dance. He's been at WrestleManias. He's been world champion. He is more experienced in the business. He played Tony Khan like a bass fiddle. Let's face it. Tony Khan got played by CM Punk. CM Punk was only there to take from the company, not to give from the company, not to put other guys over, not to advance the product of the company, but to take from the company. And Cody Rhodes, the guy who built AEW, the guy AEW was his dream. It all stems back from a bet he made with Dave Meltzer that ROH, when he was working for ROH, that ROH couldn't pack out Madison Square Garden the night of WrestleMania weekend in 2019. And Cody Rhodes said, want to bet? And Cody Rhodes and the Bucks and all these people got together and they decided, hell, if we could do it for Ring of Honor, we could do it on our own. And that's how they got the backing of Shad Khan and Tony Khan, who's a huge wrestling fan, and they created AEW organically. And then it got on TNT. That, you know, it was the return of professional wrestling to TNT for the first time ever in 18 years since the closing of WCW. It was historic. I remember watching it. I remember saying that AEW could be that future. But the problem is they're repeating a lot of the same mistakes that WCW made, a lot of the same mistakes that the Jim Crockett Promotions made. If you go back and you look at the history books, what were the mistakes that Jim Crockett Promotions made that forced them to close down? Besides bad investments and having bad accounting and buying the UWF when they really didn't need to buy the UWF because Watts was going to go out of business anyway. But besides that, letting the wrestlers run the show, letting Dusty Rhodes run the show, letting Dusty Rhodes book himself to go over at the Bunkhouse Stampede in 1988 when he didn't have to, when he didn't need to. He's already over. It should have went to Lex Luger, the next babyface they were building. Same thing with WCW. Where did WCW go wrong? A younger guy needed the rub. Kevin Nash, I was an NWO fan. I was an NWO Wolfpack fan. I dug Kevin Nash. I like Kevin Nash ever since he was in WWE. But he did not have to beat Bill Goldberg. Somebody else needed the rub. A guy like Bam Bam Bigelow could have used the rub because he was just coming back into mainstream wrestling after being on ECW for all of 3 years. He could have used the rub, not Kevin Nash. And the way they did it was very convoluted with Scott Hall with the taser and everything, and it ruined Bill Goldberg. It made Bill Goldberg look like a joke, and that was the end of WCW. That was the nail in the coffin of WCW. And then they don't even continue it. They didn't even continue it by culminating the NWO Hollywood, NWO Wolfpack storyline. They have the finger poke of doom and the reunion of the NWO. But the point is, both Jim Crockett Promotions and WCW, they're both their incarnations trying to compete with Vince. They let the wrestlers run the show. They let the wrestlers dictate what they were going to do. And that led to their demise. And that's just what Tony Khan's doing. You can't, with WCW, you can't say Eric Bischoff didn't know what he was talking about. Maybe he didn't because he was friends with Hulk Hogan. He was friends with Kevin Nash. And likewise, Jim Crockett was friends with Dusty Rhodes. From what I know, Vince McMahon has never been friends with a wrestler. He's friends with them as far as they can make him money. When they can't make him money, that's it for them. He was friends with Hogan. He was friends with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was friends with Cena. And I'm sure now he's besties with Roman Reigns because they're the top talent in WWE. That's where the friendship ends. You can't actually be friends with these people. Look, perfect example. That night after Bunkhouse Stampede in 1988, right? All the guys, this is Uniondale, New York. All the guys are at Larry's Bar, this place in Nassau County. And what does Tully Blanchard say to Tony Schiavone? And gets repeated back to Jim Crockett. Dusty should have booked himself. Dusty had too much power. With CM Punk, it's not too much power. It's not like Kevin Nash or like Dusty Rhodes. It's that he had one infraction and Tony Khan let it slide, so he thinks he can go around bullying everybody in the locker room, and he can't. And I'm glad that Tony Khan took action. You know what I'm saying? When you're gonna let him threaten everybody in a roster, the motherfucker can't even really fight. You put him in an octagon in the UFC twice. They gave him two chances because MMA crossover with wrestling worked out with Brock Lesnar, so they figured, hey, another guy that's a wrestler saying that he has legitimate fighting credentials, let's put him in there to sell a pay-per-view, right? To crack a pay-per-view. Especially they were doing a show in Chicago, and you know how Punk is in Chicago. He walks on water in that city. You know what I'm saying? But he's more popular than Lil Durk in Chicago, right? Or King Von. Well, maybe not as popular as them, but anyway. He walks on water in Chicago, right? So UFC puts him on. Dana White gives him a chance. Dana White is not against giving professional wrestlers a chance to compete in the UFC. What does this guy do? He gets annihilated. And finally, after the second chance, Dana White's like, man, you'll never see that bum here ever in UFC again. And he got kicked the hell out because he is Phillip Brooks, CM Punk, is the worst MMA fighter. He's 0 for 0. He's 0 for 2 in a real fight. I mean, really, he cannot fight at all. And he's walking around threatening people. Come on, man. Get a legitimate. Well, I don't know. Well, AEW can hook up with Bellator because WWE's hooked up with UFC. But get a through TKO Holdings. But anyway, get a legitimate MMA fighter, somebody his size, right? Get uh, Sugar Sean O'Malley or some. Yeah, Sugar Sean O'Malley be a good choice. Get him to face CM Punk. Slap the shit out of CM Punk. Come on, man. You're not even a real fighter. You can't fight for real. You're a bitch. You know, come on. And you're walking around threatening other people, threatening a promoter. Get out of the building and trying to take a shit on AEW's biggest night, man. Their chance to finally level up to prove that they are as big as WWE in a place that WWE made history. Let's just call it like it is. SummerSlam 1992, we still talk about it to this day because it was such a legendary house. And CM Punk to come in there and do the shit he did, and the match he had with Samoa Joe in the opener and All In wasn't even all that. That was a boring ass match. They were a lot older than they were in 2004 when they were putting on them classics for ROH. You know, CM Punk, and people are saying, "Oh, uh, Triple H and Vince McMahon and Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan and Dana White and all the people that are part of TKO Holdings, all the bosses, Shapiro, Mark Shapiro, another guy, all the TKO Holdings bosses, they're going to want him back." No, first of all, Triple H ain't even on the board anymore. They kicked him off. But anyway, I think he's still doing creative. I don't know. But everybody on the board, you think these guys, a lot of them have dealt with CM Punk already. Nick Khan has dealt with CM Punk. Uh, Vince McMahon has dealt with CM Punk. Dana White has dealt with CM Punk. And you think somebody in the entertainment industry that has political connections like Ari Emanuel wants to deal with a bitch like CM Punk? He has no friends in the world. Where can he go now? He's burned every single bridge that he has. He is persona non grata because he is such an asshole. I don't get it with this guy. You know what I'm saying? I just don't. I think it has something to do with his straight edge attitude. For real. I'm not an advocate of drug use or an advocate of alcohol use. I know drug use and alcohol abuse can destroy a person, especially in professional wrestling. But come on, bro. You think if he smoked weed, right? And he was like RVD, and he smoked weed every day, or he drank every day like the Sandman. You think he would be this high strung? Come on, he's high strung because he's never gotten high in his life. He's never enjoyed his life. He continuously finds negative things to bitch and complain about in his life. He's turning into another Bret Hart. But at least Bret Hart had legitimate things that happened to him that were bad. You know what I'm saying? He got screwed over in Montreal. He went to WCW. They didn't know how to handle him. Then he got kicked in the head by Goldberg. Then his brother died. Then several of his marriages fell apart, and he had a stroke. Things that were legitimately terrible that happened in Bret Hart's life. CM Punk's life is pretty daggone good. He's married to AJ Lee. He has a nice dog, a nice dog child. They're a nice dog family. You know what I'm saying? He's making pretty good money. Yeah, he fucked up in the UFC, but that was a publicity stunt. I think that was just to get WWE's attention to show that he could still draw him on pay-per-view, which they were saying that he couldn't. But he couldn't. You know what I'm saying? See, it worked for Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar was good. Brock Lesnar is a former NCAA champion. Brock Lesnar has experience in amateur wrestling, has experience in in a form of actual fighting. CM Punk doesn't. He pretends to know Muay Thai. You know what I'm saying? But when you saw his practice runs, you're like, damn, this guy sucks. You know what I mean? And he had this whole Rocky story behind him, which isn't even a Rocky story, let's be honest, because Rocky in the movie had boxing experience. He wasn't going into the fight with Apollo Creed and Rocky 1 unexperienced. He wasn't going into the fight with Apollo Creed and Rocky 1 never having fought anybody legitimately in his life. So it wasn't even Rocky, it was just some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even Chuck Webner, because Chuck Webner, when he fought Muhammad Ali, he had fights. He had at least a record he had fought before. But this was CM Punk trying to play the game, trying to get back in WWE's good graces because he know he fucked up. He fucked up going on. Going on Colt Cabana's podcast and bad mouthing the people in WWE. I mean, you didn't want to wrestle Triple H. Okay. Down the line, maybe years after, they would have given you a WrestleMania match with Daniel Bryan. See, Brian Danielson, he's different. He left on good terms. When he went to AEW, I don't think AEW is doing much with him either. And they could have been the next Hall and Nash when they first came into the company. I said so. But they're not doing much with him either necessarily. But they're doing more with him. He's not causing the trouble that CM Punk is causing. And also, another guy that AEW took from WWE that I want to mention, this person. Keith Lee. Keith Lee, come on, man. Come back home to the WWE. Leave these bullshit alone. All the people that they took from us, they took from WWE, Miro, Andrade, Keith Lee, Brian Danielson, this one, that one. Everybody that went over there, nobody's doing anything. They're all background players. I thought AEW was supposed to be this revolution. I thought that everybody was leaving the sinking ship of WWE, jumping to AEW. Only Saraya. I give Saraya the credit because at least with her, she retired unceremoniously in 2018. She broke she had that injury, and then she came back and she achieved her dream, in front of her home crowd in London right there. You know what I mean? So I give her credit. The rest of them, they're just floundering out there. Keith Lee, he has a lot of promise. He should return back to the WWE. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got scared. They got tired of Vince's booking or whatever, and they went to AEW. And AEW not doing that with them because Tony Khan doesn't have control. Tony Khan has no balls. He's not asserting himself. That's the thing. He's not asserting himself as an owner of AEW. You think Vince McMahon would have put up with that? You think Bill Watts would have put up with some bullshit like that? You think Vern Gagne would have put up with something like that? No. You think Eddie Graham, any of the wrestling promoters that you could name that were legendary wrestling promoters, Sam Mushnick, even Paul Heyman in ECW. The first time CM Punk did some bullshit like what he did at the press scrum a year and a half ago, he would have been gone. He would have been gone from the company, banished. But no, they brought him back like a punk, thinking they weren't serious, proving to them that, they need me more than I need them. Yeah, CM Punk is an asshole. all the wrestling fans who stand with CM Punk, fuck you. Peace.